No one remembered the last time Earth had gone completely silent. Even in the darkest days of war or disaster, there had always been a voice, a signal, a heartbeat of human noise echoing across the void. Humanity talked, laughed, argued, and sent music into the stars. Every galactic frequency carried at least one human broadcast. They were known for it. Every civilization knew Earth as the world that never stopped speaking. Then one morning, without a warning or whisper, Earth stopped. It began as a small technical glitch, or so the Galactic Relay Network thought. The human channels went offline one by one. First, the entertainment networks stopped sending signals. Then the science updates ended. Soon, even the old beacon that played Earth's greeting to the stars, the same one that had been running for 2 centuries, fell silent. At first, other worlds thought the humans were upgrading their systems. They always did that, constantly improving something. But hours turned to days and the silence deepened. The Council of Worlds met to discuss the situation. The chamber, floating above the silver rings of a gas giant, filled with uneasy murmurs. Silence from any world was normal now and then. Silence from Earth was not. The humans had too many colonies, too many satellites, too many automated systems. If they stopped talking, something was wrong. Deeply wrong. A few counselors joked that perhaps the humans were finally taking a break. But their laughter did not last. Within a single rotation, every long-range scanner confirmed the same truth. Earth's systems were not damaged. The defense satellites still orbited in perfect formation. The planetary shield pulsed steadily, alive and watchful. Energy readings showed no sign of collapse. Everything worked, but no one answered. It was the quiet that frightened everyone most. Humanity's silence had a different weight than anyone else's. When other species went silent, it meant peace or neutrality. When humans went silent, it meant they were thinking, and when they thought too long, something always changed in the galaxy. Exploration fleets tried to make contact. Probes were sent toward the Sol system. Every one of them was scanned before entering human space. A few were even returned, perfectly intact, placed gently at the border. That was the moment everyone realized it wasn't a failure. Earth had chosen silence. Messages poured through the Council's central hub. Reports from border colonies, trade outposts, and private captains all said the same thing. Human ships had stopped transmitting, but they still moved. Quietly, purposefully, in formation. No one knew where they were going. Even the human colonies beyond Mars refused to speak. Their lights were on, their ships were ready, but there were no words. In the far corners of the galaxy, old veterans remembered stories from the past. Stories about what happened when humans stopped talking. There was one memory that passed between every race like a ghost: the fall of the Herix Dominion. It had been a proud empire once, before they tried to enslave a human research team 200 years ago. The response from Earth came not with threats or war declarations. It came with silence. For 48 hours, nothing left Earth's communication systems. When the silence ended, the Dominion was gone. Entire worlds had vanished. Every survivor had sworn never to speak of it again. Now that same silence had returned. Every civilization started watching their skies. Fleets moved to defensive positions. Weapons were armed. But no one dared to fire. They didn't even know what would provoke the humans now. There had been no warnings, no messages of anger or sorrow. Just that endless quiet. On the 4th day, the Galactic Council sent a diplomatic fleet toward Earth. It was led by one of the oldest ambassadors, known for his calm voice and soft manner. He was certain that humanity would not harm diplomats. His ship entered the Sol system slowly, broadcasting friendly greetings. The message was clear and polite. It repeated itself in every human language, then in the standard galactic code. The crew waited. For nearly an hour there was no response. Then a single signal blinked on their screens. It was short and cold, and just 3 words: "We are observing." The ambassador ordered the message decoded again. It was not a translation error. It was exactly what it seemed to be. Humanity had not disappeared. They were watching. The crew stared at their instruments. Countless satellites turned in perfect unison. Their sensors pointed at the ship. No weapons were active, no hostile actions taken, yet the feeling was unmistakable. They were being studied. Every word, every movement was being recorded by human eyes somewhere behind that silent planet. The ambassador sent one final message of goodwill, then withdrew. He never made another statement about what he saw there. His report to the council was simple. Earth is alive. Humanity is aware. They choose silence. Those words spread faster than light itself. News channels across the galaxy repeated them again and again. On peaceful worlds, citizens gathered in fear. On warlike worlds, generals began to recall fleets and cancel drills. Everyone remembered what followed the last silence. Whole star systems turned off their transmitters, hoping not to be noticed. For the first time in history, the galaxy tried to be quiet. Weeks passed, and still there was no sign of change. Earth rotated peacefully beneath its blue clouds. The moon glowed softly beside it. Nothing moved out of place, yet the silence grew heavier with every passing day. It was like waiting for thunder after seeing lightning. Rumors began to fill the void that words once held. Some said humanity had suffered a great tragedy and was mourning. Others said they were preparing for something vast and final, a kind of reset for all of civilization. A few believed they had unlocked some new power, something beyond anyone's understanding. Every story grew darker with each retelling. Trade routes that once passed near human space were abandoned. The council ordered all exploration towards Sol halted. Even the pirates and smugglers who once operated near Earth's borders vanished. The humans had not fired a single shot, yet their silence ruled the galaxy like an invisible army. Far from Earth, in the cold edges of the Orion Belt, a small group of travelers claimed to have seen something impossible. They described huge human fleets moving without light, their ships gliding through dark space, invisible until they passed in front of stars. The travelers' data logs confirmed it. Hundreds of ships perfectly aligned, all heading deeper into unknown regions. When the report reached the council, no one argued its truth. It fit the pattern. The silence was not stillness. It was movement. Inside every government chamber, leaders began asking the same question. What had the humans seen? What could make an entire species known for endless speech go quiet all at once? No one dared to guess aloud. By the third week, the galaxy had changed. Markets froze. Alliances shifted. Old enemies stopped fighting, fearing that even small conflicts might attract human attention. The silence had become its own power, invisible, absolute, unstoppable. Humanity didn't need to speak to be heard anymore. On the 25th day, a faint transmission appeared from one of the outer satellites near Earth's orbit. It wasn't sent by accident. It was deliberate. Every receiver across the galaxy caught the signal at the same moment. The message was short, calm, and carried the tone of someone who had already made a decision. We are observing. Do not interfere. The words were followed by coordinates, not of Earth, but of a distant star system near the outer rim, then silence again. The meaning was unclear, but the message itself was a sign that humanity had not forgotten the galaxy. They were watching everything. That night, the council held an emergency session. Every delegate sat in silence, unsure how to proceed. The galaxy had never faced an enemy it could not talk to, nor an ally that refused to answer. What could anyone do against quiet resolve? No one dared to suggest force. No one dared to demand answers. And so the galaxy waited. Ships patrolled their borders. Sensors remained locked on human space. Every civilization watched for the smallest sign of movement. The quiet became a living thing, heavy, patient, and certain. Somewhere on that blue world, billions of humans went about their lives without sending a word. Yet every being across the stars felt their presence. It was as if Earth had become the eye of a storm that no one could escape. Then after 30 days of perfect silence, something strange happened. The stars near Earth brightened for a brief moment, and a flash like a heartbeat. It was gone as quickly as it came, but the readings from that pulse spread through every scientific outpost. It wasn't a weapon or explosion. It was a signal. The frequency was low, deep, and carried across hundreds of light years. No one could decode it, but one thing was certain. It wasn't random. Earth had spoken in a language no one could yet understand. The silence that followed was even deeper than before. Not empty, but full of purpose. The galaxy held its breath, realizing that something had changed forever. Humanity had gone silent not because they were weak or afraid, but because they were preparing for what no one knew. But everyone agreed on one truth. When humans stopped talking, something world-ending was always about to begin. The galaxy had lived in fear and confusion for weeks. No one had expected the humans to remain silent for this long. Every system in the council was trying to understand what had happened. Some believed it was a technical problem. Others thought Earth had entered a deep isolation phase, but no one truly knew the truth, and that was what terrified everyone the most. The Council decided it was time to investigate properly. A new fleet was built for that single mission. The ships were small, quiet, and fast, designed only for observation. No weapons were attached. The Council wanted to show that they came in peace. They knew that one wrong move could be seen as aggression, and aggression toward humans was never forgotten. When the fleet left the central world, millions watched from the public channels. People from hundreds of planets stayed awake just to follow the reports. It was the most watched mission in galactic history. Everyone wanted to see what had become of Earth. The journey to Sol took 2 standard days. As the fleet got closer, the crew began to feel uneasy. The region around Earth looked normal on their sensors, yet it felt different. Space itself seemed too still, as if every sound and signal had been absorbed into silence. Even their ship's communication systems began to pick up strange static patterns. Not dangerous, but constant, like a soft whisper of numbers and tones that no one could decode. When the ships reached the border of human space, they sent a polite request for permission to enter. Normally, humans replied within seconds. This time there was nothing. Only the quiet hum of their own engines filled the control rooms. The commander hesitated, but the Council's orders were clear. They were to proceed until stopped. The fleet crossed into Sol. The instant they did, their scanners lit up. Dozens of automated satellites turned to face them. The satellites did not move aggressively, nor did they power up weapons. They only watched, recording every movement. It was as if a billion unseen eyes had opened all at once. The commander's hands trembled slightly as he opened a secure channel to Earth. His message was simple. He introduced the Council fleet, expressed concern for the silence, and asked if humanity needed assistance. His words were sent in every galactic language and finally in Earth's oldest human tongue. Then they waited. Minutes passed. Then an hour. Still, there was no reply. Just when they were about to send another message, a single transmission appeared. The signal came not from Earth itself, but from one of its moons. The words were short and precise. "Stand by. You are being observed." The crew froze. The signal was in perfect galactic code, no delay, no distortion. The tone was calm but final. It wasn't a threat, yet it left no space for argument. The commander nodded and ordered all ships to hold position. He didn't dare to move another meter. Through their windows, the Earth shone like a blue jewel, beautiful and distant. They could see the outlines of continents, the shimmer of oceans, the golden rings of orbital stations still circling above the planet. Everything looked alive and perfect, too perfect. The humans had not abandoned their world. They had simply closed its doors. Back in the Council chamber, the report caused uproar. Some believed the humans were testing the galaxy's patience. Others said this was a warning, a quiet display of power. A few claimed the humans had transcended communication altogether and no longer needed to talk. No one could agree. Days later, a second wave of probes was sent to gather more data. They were unmanned, designed only to scan radiation, energy, and biological signals. But before they reached Earth's orbit, something remarkable happened. Each probe received an instruction signal, not from the Council but from an unknown source. The probes turned around by themselves and returned to their launch ships. When the scientists checked their memory cores, every recording of Earth had been wiped clean. The only data left was one small file. It contained a message in human binary code. "Do not look where you are not invited." It was the most unsettling line ever found in galactic science. Machines didn't just obey humans. They respected their authority, as if they were alive. The Council decided to send a final attempt. This time, a diplomatic drone carrying a peaceful recording from all the member worlds. The drone was programmed to hover near Earth and deliver a symbol of unity. As it approached the planet, it began to broadcast the greetings. But halfway through, it stopped. The broadcast cut off mid-sentence. Every listening post across the galaxy saw the same thing. The drone still floated there, unharmed, yet motionless. Then one by one, its systems shut down. Not violently, not explosively, simply powered off like a candle blown out. A few moments later, it powered on again. It rotated slowly, faced the deep sky, and then sent a single pulse. The signal carried everywhere. The same words appeared once more. "We are observing." Then the drone resumed its previous position. Silent once again. That was enough. The Council recalled all missions immediately. No one wanted to test what would happen if they disobeyed a second time. Weeks passed. The galaxy had no choice but to wait. The silence spread not only across Earth but across people's hearts. Even the most talkative species began to speak softly. The usual trade messages were replaced by short reports. Entertainment channels cut their transmissions by half. Everyone seemed afraid to make too much noise, as if loudness itself could draw human attention. But curiosity never stayed buried for long. Small groups of researchers, independent from the council, began studying what might have caused this silence. They examined everything: energy patterns, old records, even ancient human quotes. One team noticed something odd. They found that Earth's global defense network had moved into a configuration known in their database as Protocol Black Silence. It was a state of readiness that had never been activated before. According to old human archives, it was the final level of communication lockdown, a stage used only when humanity believed the entire galaxy needed to be watched. That discovery changed everything. If humanity had chosen that state, then the silence was not caused by fear or isolation. It was a decision, and decisions like that had only one reason: preparation. Rumors started again, stronger than before. Some said a great threat was coming and humans had detected it first. Others said Earth had been attacked in secret, and now they were planning revenge. A few whispered that humans had discovered something ancient buried in their own planet, something too powerful to share. The truth was that no one knew, and that ignorance became unbearable. People started turning their satellites away from Earth to avoid provoking it. Still, everyone kept listening, hoping for a sound, a word, anything. After nearly a month of waiting, a faint beacon lit up near Jupiter's orbit. It was one of Earth's defense platforms, an old model thought to be inactive for decades. The signal it sent was soft, almost like music, but when decoded it formed a sentence. "Do not worry. We are not gone. We are watching the ones who hurt us." The message hit like lightning across the council. Who had hurt them? What did it mean? No one could answer. That single line caused panic in several sectors. Nations and empires began searching their records, trying to see if any of their fleets had done something to provoke Earth. A few small alliances that had long disliked humanity started to collapse. Even the pirate groups who operated in the dark corners of space began to vanish, their hideouts abandoned overnight. Everyone knew that when humans said they were watching, it was never an empty phrase. Soon after, the beacon went dark again, as if it had served its purpose. But the damage to the galaxy's peace had already been done. The council tried to calm everyone, saying there was no reason to fear. But even they didn't believe their own words. For the first time in 1,000 years, no one dared to send ships near Earth. The routes were empty. The great blue planet hung alone in the dark, silent and untouchable. But the feeling across every mind in the galaxy was the same. Humans were still there, awake, alert, and aware of everything. And deep inside, everyone knew one thing beyond doubt. The silence of humanity was not weakness. It was control. It was the sound that came before judgment. That knowledge haunted every leader and every citizen. They didn't know who had hurt Earth or what the consequences would be. All they knew was that the humans had spoken again, even if only for a moment. And their words had frozen the stars themselves. No one slept easily that night. The galaxy, for all its size and strength, felt small again. Because in every quiet corner, one thought echoed like thunder in their minds. When humans go silent, it is never the end. It is the warning before the storm. For the first few days after Earth went silent, no one in the galaxy truly understood what had happened. The silence was so sudden, so complete that most thought it was a technical failure. Communication networks tried to reconnect, but nothing came back. Every satellite orbiting the planet had gone dark at the exact same moment. No messages, no signals, no response. At first, the Galactic Council thought it was temporary. They sent out a dozen unmanned probes to orbit Earth and transmit basic data. None returned. The few that got close enough simply vanished from all sensors, as if they had been swallowed by the void itself. Then the panic began. Earth had always been strange to the rest of the galaxy. It was not the oldest world nor the largest, but it was the most unpredictable. Humans were the only species who built peace after war. then destroyed it only to rebuild again stronger each time. The Council never fully understood how they worked. They were emotional and logical at the same time, fragile yet fearless. When Earth went silent, that unpredictability returned, not through action, but through stillness. The galaxy had prepared for human words, human anger, or human fleets. It had never prepared for human silence. The first reaction came from the outer sectors. A few minor worlds, bitter about past conflicts with Earth, celebrated the silence. They said humanity had finally fallen, that maybe their homeworld had collapsed under its own arrogance. They spoke loudly, laughing, making bold claims about taking over human colonies left unguarded. 2 days later, their communication hubs stopped responding. Then their orbital stations lost power. By the third day, every trace of life from those worlds had vanished. No explosions, no debris, just empty silence. That was when the galaxy realized Earth's silence wasn't weakness. It was the beginning of something far worse. The Council gathered in emergency session. Every representative looked nervous. The chamber, usually full of noise, was unnaturally quiet. The chair finally spoke, his voice trembling slightly. "If Earth has chosen silence," he said, "it means they are no longer warning us." Those words spread faster than any signal. Across the stars, fleets recalled their ships, colonies locked down, and traders refused to enter any human space. No one wanted to be the next example, but even as fear grew, some worlds refused to believe. One of the coalition's admirals, an old rival of the human, insisted that this was all a trick. He ordered his fleet toward the Sol system, claiming he would prove the humans had no power left. His fleet contained nearly 200 ships, advanced, armed, confident. They never made it past Jupiter. The last message from his command ship was a short transmission. It contained only 3 words. "They are awake." Then nothing. That phrase spread like fire. They are awake. What did it mean? Were humans building weapons? Were they calling something? Or was it something else entirely? No one had an answer. And that made it worse. For the first time in galactic history, entire regions shut down their communication networks voluntarily, afraid their signals might attract attention. The galaxy, usually filled with light and chatter, became quiet. A silence that mirrored Earth's. In that silence, fear turned into reflection. Many began to remember what humanity had done for them before, the medicine they had shared, the technology they had freely given, the peace treaties they had brokered after centuries of conflict. Humans had been loud, emotional, sometimes reckless, but always willing to help. Their disappearance left a void, not just in power, but in meaning. One historian from a distant world said softly during a transmission, "Maybe they went silent because they are disappointed." His words were recorded, replayed, and shared across the stars. For the first time, the galaxy began to question itself. Maybe Earth hadn't gone silent because of anger. Maybe it was sorrow. The Council ordered a final attempt to reach out, not by ship but by message. They built the largest transmission array ever constructed, capable of sending a signal across every wavelength. The message was simple: "Earth, we are listening. Please respond." They sent it once every hour, every day for a full week. No reply came. Then, on the 7th day, every system that had transmitted the message received a single pulse of light. It wasn't data or words, just light, but it repeated 3 times in perfect rhythm. The Council scientists analyzed it endlessly, trying to decode meaning from it. Finally, one linguist recognized the pattern. It matched the ancient distress code used by humans, the kind they had used long ago, before they joined the galactic community. But the pattern wasn't a cry for help. It was the opposite. It was a warning, a message that meant do not follow. After that, even the bravest species stepped back. No one dared to send anything toward Earth again. Weeks turned into months. The silence didn't fade. It deepened. Human colonies that still existed outside the solar system began to withdraw quietly. They stopped trading, stopped speaking. One by one, they disconnected their communication networks and vanished into the void. They didn't fight, didn't threaten. They just disappeared, leaving empty outposts behind. Soon, even the colonies near human space started to lose power. Ships found drifting in those regions had no crews, no signs of struggle, just cold silence. People began to say that the humans had turned their silence into a weapon. That they could stop systems, halt energy, erase movement, all without a single shot. Some said it wasn't technology, but something greater, something only they understood. The Council's scientists dismissed those claims, but deep down everyone felt the truth. Humanity's silence was no longer absence, it was presence. It was everywhere. Then came the message that changed everything. It appeared not on any official frequency, but on the old, forgotten human emergency band, the kind no one used anymore. Across hundreds of systems at the same time it played the same sentence. We gave you peace and you answered with blood. Now we will give you silence. No one knew where it came from. Every world heard it differently. Some as a voice, others as static that formed words. But everyone understood, and just like that the message ended. No follow-up, no sound, just an endless, expanding silence. From that moment onward, the galaxy lived in fear of quiet. Silence became more frightening than war. Whenever communication lines went dead, people trembled. Whenever sensors stopped working, they whispered that Earth was near. But after the fear settled, something unexpected began to happen. Some worlds started changing, not from fear, but from guilt. They started teaching their young about respect and patience. They stopped exploiting weaker species. They began to share, to protect, to rebuild. It was as if the human silence had forced them to grow up. Across the stars, new phrases appeared. Honor the quiet. Wait before you act. Do not test silence. Humanity's lesson had started to shape the galaxy's soul. Still, the question remained. Why had Earth gone silent in the first place? What pushed them to withdraw completely? No one could answer. Some believed humanity had seen something beyond the galaxy, something no one else could understand. Others said they simply lost faith in the Council's endless greed and lies. But one small piece of evidence surfaced many years later. A lone data drone, damaged and ancient, drifted near an uninhabited sector. Its records were mostly erased, but one entry survived, a human log file. It contained only a few words, dated just before the silence began. If they cannot listen, then they must feel the quiet. That one line told the galaxy everything it needed to know. Humanity hadn't vanished out of anger. They had made a choice. To teach through absence, to lead without leading, to guide through stillness. From that moment on, silence became sacred. Whenever a world faced conflict, they remembered Earth. Whenever leaders grew too proud, they reminded each other, do not forget what happened when the humans went silent. And as years passed, the galaxy lived under that quiet shadow, not as slaves, but as students. Every flicker of static, every drop in signal, every pause in communication reminded them that somewhere, somehow, the humans were still watching, and though no one had seen them since, everyone knew one truth. If Earth ever spoke again, it would not be to warn. It would be to end what should have never begun. That was the power of human silence. It didn't destroy worlds. It changed them. The silence of Earth had stretched so long that many had started to believe it might never break. Entire worlds had adjusted to living under its shadow. Fleets had stopped traveling near human space. Trade between the outer colonies had slowed. Everyone waited, wondering if the humans were simply watching forever or if they were preparing for something much greater. Then, without warning, the waiting ended. It started on a quiet morning when the Council received a report from one of the frontier systems. The report was short and carried a trembling voice. A convoy of human ships and freighters, not war vessels, and had been attacked. They were carrying medical supplies to a distant colony on the edge of the spiral arm. The attackers were not pirates from the usual bands. They were mercenaries hired by a small coalition that had been growing bold lately, one that thought the silence of Earth meant weakness. The freighters were destroyed. Not one human survived. The news spread through the stars like fire. Every world stopped what it was doing. For the first time in weeks, communication lines were full again, but this time it was fear that spoke. Everyone remembered the last time something like this happened in history, and what followed after. The Council met within hours. Leaders argued, their voices rising and shaking. Some demanded the coalition surrender immediately before Earth found out. Others said that perhaps Earth had already known, and that silence meant the decision had already been made. Nobody wanted to say it out loud, but they all felt it. The humans didn't forgive easily, and they never forgot. At first, there was no reaction from Earth. The silence continued, and that made it worse. Every hour that passed without a response was like the air before a storm. Even the members of the attacking coalition started to panic. Their leaders sent desperate messages to the council, claiming the attack had been an accident, a misunderstanding. But deep inside, they knew it was too late. Then something strange began to happen. Human fleets that had been stationed at known locations started to disappear from their coordinates. They didn't jump to hyperspace in any detectable way. They simply vanished. One by one, entire patrol lines went dark. Tracking systems lost them. Probes could not find them. It was as if humanity had folded its ships into the shadows. At first, some thought this was a retreat. Maybe Earth had chosen to hide and recover. But those who knew humans best understood the truth immediately. This was not retreat. This was concentration. The humans were gathering. The coalition's fleets began to fortify their systems. They built new defense grids, filled their orbits with satellites, and locked every jump gate they could. But no one attacked them. No human ship entered their space. Weeks passed again, and the silence returned, heavy, tense, and alive. Then one day a single light appeared above one of the coalition worlds. It wasn't a fleet or a weapon. It was a beacon. It carried no sound, only a pulse, steady and slow like a heartbeat. When decoded, it contained a short message in simple galactic text. We have seen. We remember. The world below went into chaos. Every system on that planet went on full alert. They waited for an army that never came. But something else did. Systems began shutting down on their own. Communication networks failed first, then energy grids. The people couldn't contact their neighboring worlds. Their skies turned dark. The stars vanished behind an electronic curtain. Across the galaxy, sensors recorded the same pattern on other coalition planets. No battles, no explosions, just quiet systems losing power. Then their archives went blank. The entire digital memory of those worlds, trade data, government files, even personal records, disappeared. When the power returned, nothing was left. It was as if those civilizations had been wiped clean from history, but without a single shot fired. Every other world that had been watching this happen realized it at once. Humanity had not sent a fleet. They had sent a consequence. The Council panicked. Messages were sent to Earth begging for communication. Offers of peace and cooperation filled the airwaves. Some even promised to punish those responsible themselves. But there was no reply. Earth stayed quiet. The only sign of movement came from distant space, where faint signals showed large-scale object transfers, fleets moving silently through deep space in perfect formation. When one of those formations passed through a nebula, a listening post managed to intercept a brief communication ping. It wasn't directed to anyone. It was a simple status report between ships. The transmission said, Phase 2 complete. Stand by. Then it ended. That line was enough to terrify the galaxy. If that was only Phase 2, what was next? In less than a week, 7 star systems linked to the coalition went completely dark. Their communication relays vanished. No explosions were seen. The planets remained in orbit untouched, but all signs of life disappeared from the network. Those who managed to escape described the same thing, a sudden blackout, then absolute quiet. The Council gathered for an emergency session. The leaders could barely look each other in the eye. The realization was spreading fast. Earth had acted and no one could stop it. Some argued that humanity had gone too far. Others whispered that it was justice and that the galaxy was only paying for its arrogance. In the middle of the meeting, something unexpected happened. The council chamber lights flickered. For a moment, every device in the room went black. Then a symbol appeared on the central display, a single circle surrounded by small stars. It was the ancient seal of Earth's united fleet, a mark that hadn't been seen in centuries. A calm, steady voice followed. It said, "We will not debate justice. We will demonstrate it." The chamber fell silent. The voice continued, "You believed our silence was weakness. You believed our peace was surrender. You were wrong. We are watching all who choose chaos over reason. Those who spill blood will learn the meaning of quiet consequence." When the message ended, the symbol faded and the systems returned to normal. Not a single council engineer could explain how the transmission had reached them. It bypassed every layer of security, entered through no known channel, and left no trace. After that day, no one dared to speak against Earth again. Even the most powerful nations began sending emergency aid shipments toward human colonies, hoping to show goodwill. But humanity didn't acknowledge them. No signal was returned. The silence continued, colder and heavier than before. Slowly, the evidence of human power began to fade from the skies. The fleets that had been seen near distant systems disappeared again. No one knew where they had gone. It was as if humanity had once more melted back into the stars, leaving behind only the echo of what they had done. But even when they vanished from sight, their presence remained everywhere. Every satellite engineer, every ship captain, every communication officer knew one truth. If Earth wanted to find you, it could. If humans wanted to act, there would be no warning. Months later, traders traveling through old coalition routes began reporting strange sightings. Planets that had once been barren now glowed faintly with artificial light, as if something new had been built on their surfaces. No one could approach to confirm. Any ship that came too close lost its navigation systems and drifted away. From a distance, those planets looked like silent memorials. The galaxy understood. The humans hadn't destroyed those worlds for revenge. They had rebuilt them, or perhaps repurposed them, as reminders. Quiet worlds standing as warnings in the dark. From that point onward, no one used the phrase Earth silence lightly again. It became a proverb across civilizations. It meant the end of arrogance, the beginning of respect. Children on distant planets were taught that if you hear nothing from Earth, it means they are thinking. And if they are thinking, you should pray they do not act. The Council, shaken by what had happened, created a new law. Any harm done to a human ship or citizen would be considered a galactic crime, punishable by every world combined. Not because they feared humanity's anger, but because they feared its silence. In the years that followed, peace spread faster than anyone expected. No one wanted to risk awakening Earth's quiet judgment again. Even conflicts between alien empires dropped to their lowest levels in history. The silence of Earth had become a strange kind of peacekeeper, invisible, unstoppable, and absolute. And still, after everything, the humans never said another word about the attack. They didn't explain their actions. They didn't boast. They didn't threaten. They simply returned to their calm, unreachable silence, watching the stars as if nothing had happened. But deep in the hearts of every being in the galaxy, there remained one shared thought. The silence of humanity was not emptiness. It was presence. It was the sound of power so sure of itself it no longer needed to speak. And everyone knew that if the silence ever returned in full again, it would mean only one thing. That Earth had decided to act once more. For a time it seemed like the galaxy had finally understood the warning. Everyone spoke softly again. Fleets stayed home. No one dared to cross into human space. The silence of Earth became a rule everyone obeyed. But peace built on fear never lasts long, and when that fear began to fade, foolishness returned. A few months after the coalition worlds went dark, small rumors began to spread. People whispered that the humans had gone back into isolation, that maybe their fleets were no longer watching, that perhaps the stories of their power had been exaggerated. It always started that way, with doubt. It began with a group of outer systems trying to reclaim lost trade routes that passed close to Earth's borders. They sent their ships quietly at first, pretending it was harmless exploration. No one stopped them. They took that as a sign. Soon they became bolder. They reopened stations, reactivated mining fields, and even set up small colonies near the old human patrol zones. For a while, everything seemed normal. The stations ran smoothly. The miners worked without trouble. Then one morning, the stars above those stations flickered. All communication systems cut out at once. No explosions, no impact. Just total silence. When nearby ships tried to contact them, they received only static. The stations were gone. Word reached the Council almost immediately. This time the reaction was pure panic. The Council had not ordered the mining operations. The humans had warned everyone before, do not interfere. And now those who ignored that message had vanished. The pattern was becoming clear. Humanity didn't speak twice. But something felt different this time. The way it happened. Fast, silent, and absolute. It felt like a demonstration. Not anger, but a lesson. As if Earth was saying, you forgot too quickly. Then came the next sign. Across the outer sectors, a network of communication satellites suddenly blinked. Every system that had once worked with the coalition received a new transmission. The signal was weak, but unmistakably human in origin. It played only 2 sentences. "We told you not to test our silence, we warned you what it means." And then it ended. The message repeated only once before vanishing completely. Every government that heard those words knew what they meant. Retaliation had begun. But no one could predict what form it would take. Unlike the great wars of the past, this was not a conflict of armies or fleets. The humans didn't need to conquer worlds. They could simply erase what they wished from existence, quietly, efficiently, and without leaving traces. Within days, strange events began to unfold across the galaxy. Entire communication hubs went offline for hours, then days. Navigation systems malfunctioned. Drones started receiving orders from unknown sources, causing confusion and chaos. But none of these incidents caused casualties. That was the most unsettling part. Humanity wasn't destroying, they were disabling, watching, controlling. One council technician described it best when he said, "They don't need to fight us. They can just switch us off." In the council hall, fear returned. Every leader began checking their own history, old records, forgotten incidents, hidden crimes. Everyone wanted to make sure they had never done anything that could be seen as an attack on humanity. Some tried to cover up their past mistakes. Others made public apologies even though no one from Earth could be reached to hear them. It was desperation disguised as diplomacy. Then came the day no one could forget. It started when a single human artifact appeared in the heart of the Council's great chamber. No ship had entered, no transporter had been detected, yet there it was. A small silver device floating silently above the central platform. The guards approached it cautiously. When one of them touched it, the room filled with light. A holographic image appeared. It was the Earth symbol, shining softly against the chamber walls. Then a voice spoke. Calm, clear, and steady. It wasn't angry. It wasn't cruel. It sounded human, but not like anyone alive today. The voice said, "We do not seek destruction. We seek understanding. You forget too easily that peace is not built on silence alone, but on respect. You believed our quiet was surrender. You were wrong. It was restraint." The chamber was completely still. No one dared to breathe. The voice continued. "Those who raised weapons against our people are gone, not because we desired their end, but because they left us no choice. We gave them silence as mercy, but they mistook it for weakness. We will not repeat this mistake." After a pause, the voice softened. "To the rest of you, remember this. We do not speak often because our words carry weight. When we are silent, it is to think. When we act, it is to end what should have never begun." Then the light faded. The device disintegrated into fine dust, leaving nothing behind. That message changed the galaxy forever. There was no official announcement from Earth, no further explanation. But everyone understood what the humans meant. Retaliation wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about teaching the galaxy to remember. In the days that followed, every pirate base and mercenary station linked to the attack on the human freighters went dark. No distress calls, no escape ships, just silence. When explorers visited those sites later, they found them empty, but untouched, as if the people had simply vanished. Only one thing remained in each place, a simple inscription carved into the metal walls, written in clean human script. "Silence is mercy." After that, no one questioned Earth's power again. Even the most defiant nations accepted their quiet rule. No treaty was signed, no armies were needed. The balance returned naturally. For the first time, many began to see something new in humanity's silence. Not just fear, but purpose. The galaxy started to realize that humans didn't act out of hatred. They acted out of principle. They didn't seek control or expansion. They simply refused to let injustice stand. Their silence was not emptiness. It was the space between decisions, the calm before balance returned. Yet despite the peace that followed, one question remained. How much power did Earth truly hold? The events had shown that they could strike anywhere, anytime, without being seen. Some believed they had built networks far beyond anyone's understanding, systems that could control or erase any target they wished. Others said they had learned something greater, a kind of knowledge that allowed them to bend reality itself. The truth was that no one knew. And maybe that was the point. Humanity had become the galaxy's greatest mystery. The fear that once ruled hearts slowly turned into respect. Young civilizations began studying Earth's old teachings about patience, observation, and restraint. The phrase human silence even became part of galactic language, a symbol for the calm before a decisive act. On distant planets, poets wrote about the day Earth went silent. They said the humans had shown the universe something it had forgotten, that strength is not in noise or display, but in the power to choose when to speak. Years passed and life went on, but even generations later, when people looked at the night sky and saw that small blue star shining faintly in the dark, they remembered the story. They remembered the message that echoed across time. We will not debate justice. We will demonstrate it. And though no one ever heard Earth's voice again, everyone knew they were still there, watching, waiting, protecting. Sometimes, deep space travelers would report faint signals coming from regions no one had mapped, soft pulses of light like beacons calling to no one. The patterns were always the same, steady, deliberate, and human. The signals never carried words, but those who listened said they could feel what they meant. It was peace, patience, and warning, all in one. Even the council changed after those events. They stopped fighting among themselves. They created a new order of observers, dedicated to preventing conflict before it began. They called it the Silent Accord, inspired by Earth's way of maintaining balance. The council leaders often said that humanity had done what they themselves never could, bring unity without demanding control. But beneath all the calm and cooperation, one truth remained whispered among old officers and scientists. They said humanity never truly stopped watching. That somewhere beyond the stars, the human fleet still moved, unseen, unstoppable, waiting for the day they were needed again. Because everyone knew what silence meant. When humans stopped talking, it wasn't because they had nothing to say. It was because they were deciding how the story would end, and the galaxy had already learned once what that decision felt like. So no one dared to test it again. The silence stayed. Peace followed. And Earth, unseen and unheard, remained the quiet heart of the galaxy. The reminder that sometimes the most powerful sound in the universe is no sound at all. Years passed and the galaxy changed. Worlds that once feared the humans began to live with their lessons in mind. People still whispered about the day of silence when Earth stopped answering and the stars seemed to hold their breath. But with time, that story became more than fear. It became wisdom. Children learned it in schools. Pilots carried it in their hearts, and leaders kept it as a reminder written into their laws. Silence means decision, they would say. When Earth falls quiet, it is already too late to plead. Still, no one truly knew what had become of the humans. The last message from them was still remembered by every world. That calm, steady voice saying, "When we act, it is to end what should have never begun." Those words had become a warning carved in the hearts of every civilization, but they had also become something deeper, something like respect. The galaxy began to rebuild itself differently. Trade routes opened again, not out of greed but out of caution. Colonies began sharing technology and helping each other rather than competing. No one wanted to repeat the mistakes that once angered the silent blue planet. It was almost as if humanity's absence had taught everyone how to be better. But deep down, everyone wondered the same thing. Why had Earth stayed silent for so long? Explorers, historians, and thinkers all searched for answers. Thousands of probes were sent toward the Sol system, though none ever returned. The transmissions always stopped the same way. A burst of static, then silence. Some said the humans destroyed them. Others believed something stronger was protecting that space. Whatever the truth was, it became clear that no one was meant to enter uninvited. Then one day, something unexpected happened. It wasn't war or an attack or even a message. It was just a sound, a faint signal picked up by a small research vessel near the edge of known space. It was weak, almost like a whisper, but when the scientists enhanced it, they realized it carried a familiar rhythm. It was human speech. Only 3 words came through clearly. Remember what matters. The message spread across the galaxy within hours. Some thought it was fake, some said it was a test, but the older generations who had lived through the silence recognized the tone. It was calm, honest, and deeply human. It didn't sound like a threat. It sounded like guidance. Many believed it was Earth's final message, not a warning this time, but a reminder. And the more people thought about it, the more meaning they found in those 3 simple words. Remember what matters. To the merchants, it meant fairness. To the soldiers, it meant restraint. To the rulers, it meant peace. For a while, it seemed like that was enough. Civilizations began to thrive again. The galaxy entered an age of quiet progress. People built, traded, and explored, always remembering the human's lesson. They didn't speak for power, they acted for purpose. But as always, time has a way of softening memories. Generations passed. The story of Earth slowly became legend, then myth. Some called it the tale of the silent planet. To the younger worlds, it sounded like a story told to scare children. They said, how can one world silence a galaxy? They laughed at the idea of unseen power watching from the stars. That laughter didn't last long. It began quietly, an anomaly deep in the galactic core. A massive signal, unlike anything ever recorded, pulsed through the void. It wasn't communication, it was energy. It rippled through space, disturbing systems, shutting down machinery, confusing sensors. Scientists from every world gathered to study it, but no one could trace its source. Some thought it was natural, others said it was a weapon. But then, buried deep in the signal, they found something else. A sequence of numbers, repeated over and over. When decoded, it formed a simple coordinate, and those coordinates pointed to one place: Earth. Fear spread fast. The council called an emergency session. No one knew what it meant. Some believed Earth was sending a warning again. Others feared something terrible had happened there. But the signal wasn't hostile. It was steady, patient, and rhythmic, almost like a heartbeat. The council decided to send a mission. Not a military one, a diplomatic mission, a gesture of peace. For the first time in centuries, they voted unanimously to approach Earth. A single ship was chosen, carrying representatives from every major world. Its goal was simple: to listen, not to speak. The journey was long and silent. When the ship neared the Sol system, the crew saw what no one had seen in living memory: the blue planet. It was beautiful, untouched, and perfectly calm. No signs of war, no movement in orbit, just quiet perfection. Then something remarkable happened. The ship's systems shut down automatically. Engines, lights, everything went still. But the crew was not afraid. They felt something in that silence, a presence. Not hostile, not warm, just aware. A soft light filled the ship. No figure appeared, no sound was made. Then the same voice from centuries ago spoke again. You remembered. The words echoed gently through the cabin. The crew felt tears in their eyes, though none of them knew why. The voice continued. You built peace without command. You chose restraint without fear. You have learned. There was a pause, a silence so deep it felt alive. Then the voice said, this was the test. Our silence was not punishment. It was trust. We wanted to see if the galaxy could find balance without our hand. The crew was speechless. They had expected power or punishment, but not this. The voice continued, calm and steady. You have shown that you can listen, that you can grow. The lesson is not to fear silence, but to understand it. True strength does not shout. It acts when needed and waits when it must. And then softly it added, we will remain silent still, but know this. We are here. We always were. The light faded. Systems came back online. The ship turned gently and began its return home, guided by forces unseen. When they arrived, every world listened to their message. The report was simple and short. It said, Earth is alive, humanity watches, and they are proud. That single sentence reshaped the galaxy once again. The idea that the humans had been watching not to control but to guide, it changed everything. For the first time, silence no longer meant fear. It meant faith. It meant that humanity believed the galaxy had finally learned to walk on its own. People began to live differently again. Instead of chasing power, they began building communities. They taught their children about patience, about the importance of listening before acting. Monuments were built on many worlds, not to celebrate victory, but to honor silence itself, the kind that brings understanding instead of war. And in every monument, the same words were written: remember what matters. Centuries later, explorers still visit the edge of the Sol system, just to see the faint blue glow of Earth from afar. No one crosses the line. They don't have to. The silence around that planet is sacred. It is a reminder that some lessons are eternal. Sometimes late at night, travelers swear they can hear something faint in the static of their radios, a heartbeat, steady and calm. They say it's Earth, still watching, still waiting, still believing in the peace it helped create. And though no human voice has spoken again, the galaxy finally understands the meaning of that silence. It is not the silence of anger nor of absence. It is the silence of wisdom, the kind that comes when you no longer need to prove what you already know. Humanity became the unseen guardian, not through fear, but through faith. Their silence was their legacy, a reminder that the greatest power in the universe is not destruction, but discipline. Not control, but care. Not words, but meaning. And so, as the galaxy spun and stars lived and died, one truth endured. When Earth went silent, it didn't end the story. It began a new one, a story where the universe learned to listen, and that lesson, quiet, eternal, and deeply human, would echo forever across the SIs.